Well, what I thought we could do first is I'll start by trying to explain some kind of context of what Chumbawamba was. We actually stopped playing about 3 weeks ago. That was our final gig, and so it was 30 years, and we thought that's long enough for anyone to be playing rock and roll music or whatever. And what happened is that this band started because we came to Leeds. I came to Leeds to go on an art course at the university. But really I came because I wanted to be where lots of other people were playing music, and I thought it was really interesting scene and everything, and we found a big old house to squat in Whalley, which is West Leeds, and gathered creative people in this house, some of which were at art college and some of which weren't, but we realised that we were different from most other bands, people wanting to be in bands, because we weren't interested in sitting around playing guitars and drums and just jamming all day. We were interested in the ideas behind music, and we were informed by art and by art college and by people trying to do things in an interesting, challenging, weird way, and that separated us from a lot of other bands that were sort of bracketed with us. And all through the years that stuck with us, and how it worked was that I grew up in a time when it was the aftermath of like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who, and then later on people like who we were talking about yesterday, like the Bonzo Dog Band, and it was the 1970s, all the David Bowie, all this sort of thing, and that was all art school inspired, and it was all people trying to think in terms of ideas rather than just rocking out and making music. And that's what our focus was, and we held on to that. So, for instance, before we ever made a record, in about 1985, I remember sitting down and having a meeting where we said, let's assume we're going to be making records for a while. Every record that we make, we're not going to have a logo. We're not going to use the same typeface for our name. Every record has to look like it's done by a different band, which is sort of commercial suicide, and we thought but it would be interesting, because every band that we knew you'd get a logo, and it was great because people could paint it on the back of the jackets and all that sort of thing, and we didn't want that. We wanted something that every couple of years, if people heard of us, they went, what is that? I don't understand what that is. What does it sound like? Oh, it doesn't sound like the last thing I heard by them, and that was our big thing. That's what we wanted to do. And Leeds was a great place to be doing that, because there were lots of people involved in the arts and stuff at that time. To be honest, I've no idea what it's like in Leeds at the moment in terms of music, other than the sort of Kaiser Chiefs thing. But I know that there is still an art school follow-on, people being involved in music. And basically what I'm trying to say is that the connection between music and art was always really essential for us. And I think the reason that we were interested in this project that Tony told us about is because I thought this is really interesting, because the idea of trying to do a poster that reflects or talks about something that's music, I think is a great part of our culture, because it's two great things that Britain's really good at. Let's do it. And the one thing that we always did, as well as all that art school stuff, we had politics. We wanted to say things about the world, but we didn't want to just be some shouty, ranty band stuffing politics down everybody's throats. So we had this other side, which was to try and have this shouty politics thing, but to do it in a gentle way, to try and do it with harmony and with melody. And some of the lyrics that some of you have seen, they started life as you would have a title, which we thought was a dynamic title. And I think, for instance, in terms of design, if you're doing a poster or something, then the first thing you want is something that actually makes people stop as they walk along. So we would have a title like "I Never Gave Up," which was such a very polemic. It came from an anti-fascist thing originally, and it was just really straight in your face, really obvious. But then the idea, and we had a song called "Enough Is Enough," and we have a song called "Homophobia." These are like really obvious, definite statements that drag people in. Then once you've done that, the idea with us was to make the rest of the song somehow poetic or gentle, so that you weren't just sort of battering somebody about the head with a simple political slogan. And I think that applies to art and design as well. I think it's great if you can encompass something really strong and powerful with something that's thoughtful and caring and beautiful. I think then you've got it, you've cracked it. Because there are so many, the reason I was turned off a lot of politics when I was a kid was that it all seemed to be about people just shouting at me about the things that were wrong with the world. And I think that's one way of doing it, but I think it's really nice if they can shout at you, but then you understand that there's the explanation is actually fascinating and interesting and beautiful and down to earth and caring and all this sort of thing. So those are the two things of what Chumbawamba always was. Firstly, this whole thing of coming out of the art school thing and wanting to be weird and interesting like that. And secondly, this thing of always wanting to counterbalance the heavy political side, because we were anarchists and we had very, very strong political views, but to balance that with a way of sort of trying to be able to attract people or talk to people on a very human level. And in my head, my thing was always that I was even when we were like there were times when we'd be playing to audiences that were full of sort of 18, 19-year-olds, but I was also aware that we were writing tunes that my grandma was happy with. And that was really important to me. I didn't want to be like Rage Against the Machine and just shouting, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, because I just think it's a brilliant thing and it works in its own way, but that isn't what we do, because that cuts out so many people who won't even listen as soon as you start shouting and swearing. And so we always try to get that balance. So that's basically the introduction to what Chumbawamba was for 30 years, and we kept that through right till the end. Do you have anything to add to that? Does that make sense?
No, that's good, yeah.
Is that all right? Feels my right-hand man today.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid saying anything.
Because I think there's the case that if there are more meanings to a song than are direct, and as you say, that if you're trying to hit somebody over the head with the meanings, then that's too much. So a level of ambiguity, or a level of that you have to work at it, is an important part of how that it is going to operate. As I think, as far as I'm concerned, all good art is that it's you have to work at your interpretation. It isn't necessarily completely obvious what all the meanings are.
And there are questions as well, even in with the band, because we were political. We didn't want to go. We never wanted to say do this, go out and do this, go out and fight on the streets or whatever. It was always asking questions and trying to explain that we weren't that we wanted to pass on ideas and knowledge and facts, but that we didn't have all the answers, definitely not. And I think that's an important thing in art and in all kinds of art, including music.